Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's betterhelp.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space, ready to give you guys this week's food for thought. As per usual, I'm wearing some of the Everyday We Train line from Tie Gear, available on tiegear.com. You can find this and many, many, many other styles available on tiegear.com, as well as the Street Wear Connect collection and a whole bunch of other stuff. Check it all out at tiegear.com. So as we speak today, we are just days removed from Flex Fights number 37, which was entitled Full Throttle Combat. We were at the Amazura nightclub in Queens, and it was a really awesome night. The air conditioning of the venue was not awesome. I'll be the first one to admit that. We've heard from the venue maintenance people many times that the air conditioning was on. It certainly didn't feel that way. As someone who kind of prides myself on always wearing a suit to Flex Fights, I never put on my sport coat the entire time we were there. And I definitely, for the amount of water that I drank, I definitely did not use the facilities nearly as much to justify the amount of water that was coming in. But despite the hot venue and the fact that we were at the Amazura in Queens, which is a little bit away from our Flex Fights home of Stereo Garden in Patchogue, we rocked the house as per usual. We had 33 fights by the time all was said and done. We had amateur kickboxing, we had amateur MMA, we had pro MMA, we had pro kickboxing, we had title fights. We did a whole East Coast, up north versus down south title series where we had fighters from up north fight fighters from down south, and it was a really awesome idea. So yeah, let's get right into it, talking about some of the action, and then again later on the things that I went on to learn from this particular show. So one of the things that stands out the most to me is we had 4 Team Tiger Schulman's fighters on the card. I'll touch on them quick, as well as whatever other fighters kind of jump out to me. So starting off the night, we had Gabriela Hernandez out of our Bay Ridge school. Very tall woman for her weight class, right? 125 pounds, very tall, very long-limbed, and her boxing looked phenomenal in her kickboxing bout. Did a really, really good job of just maintaining her space, and her opponent, to her credit, was trying to smother the distance and trying to turn Gabby into a T-Rex, but she just didn't do it quite far enough in order for it to really make a difference. Whereas Gabby was able to maintain her distance and really just let go some really nice combinations again and again and again, and land at a very, very, very high clip. Then next up that evening, we had amateur fighter Jordan McCarthy, who I've spoken about before. Jordan, not only a great martial artist, super happy young lady, always in a great mood. She's the one who every year at the COC, she works with Catalina and is Catalina's opponent every day, or every year I should say, for the COC. And then on top of it, also stepped up and worked Catalina's corner for Swing for the Stars. And Jordan looked like a monster in her first fight. The smile never really coming off of her face as she battled her way forward. And she did very similar this time. Just really crisp looking boxing, great kicks, of course, as well. And eventually there seemed to be a clash where their opponent threw a round kick late in round 2, and Jordan checked it very high on her knee. And her opponent was unable to answer the bell for round 3. It was a really competitive fight. The girl was definitely tough. The other young lady, very, very tough. She was pretty experienced too. She had, this was her 4th fight, where it was only Jordan's 2nd. And again, very tough, very strong. Everything she threw at Jordan had some oomph on it. Again, definitely a really good fight. Then as we moved on in the night, we had Dominic Mandarino, who trains out of our headquarters, and he was in an amateur MMA fight. And it was his return to the cage, 2nd fight in a fairly short order. And he finished his first fight in pretty spectacular fashion with a spinning back kick to the body. And he looked, again, equally good this time. Calm, composed, kept his distance better, threw better combinations. Just definitely more relaxed, and you could see how his skill had definitely progressed in a very short time, and how he went from debuting fighter with the nerves hitting to a more experienced fighter moving on, and like really kind of maturing in his career is the word I was looking for. And as we worked our way, that was towards the tail end of our amateur preliminary card. We did our pro MMA fights. I'll talk about them in a moment after I finish about the Tiger Schulman's fighters. Then following the pro MMA, we went right back to amateur MMA. We had Zachary Semesko from our Bethlehem school, who very experienced guy for how young he is in his career. This was his 7th fight between kickboxing and MMA, and he did it, the right way in terms of Tiger Schulman's. He won a kickboxing title, looked great winning that kickboxing title, went and won a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments, went and made his MMA debut, finished that fight as well back in June, and then he took this fight on only a couple of weeks' notice, probably like 3 or 4 weeks' notice, and looked spectacular. I think the young man he was fighting was a late replacement, but Zachary looked calm and composed and kept his distance really, really well, and worked exactly at the distance he wanted to work and exactly the angles he wanted to work. And his opponent overcommitted on a particular punch, found himself out of position. Zach slid just out of the way, touched him with a left hand, and that left hand was the beginning of the end. It led to a flurry. Zach's a lefty, so it threw the left hand, followed it with a right, like uppercut hook kind of punch, and that definitely sealed the deal. I think it might have even broken his opponent's nose, but either way, it was definitely a spectacular performance. And just, he looked very calm, very composed, and just really solid in his skills throughout. I mean, we haven't yet seen him tested on the ground. I mean, I know the school he comes from, and I know that he does a whole bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments, but he hasn't had the opportunity yet to show in the MMA cage him being tested on the ground. So I know the skills are there. We just haven't had to. It's not something he's had to go to yet. He hasn't. Plan A kept working, so why go to Plan B, right? Later on, we had our pro kickboxing fighter of the night, Brandon Catino, seasoned veteran out of Team Tiger Schulman's, a good friend of mine, trained with him a long time, and both very similarly built. We actually wound up getting married like a week apart. Didn't even plan it that way. Just an overall, just genuinely nice guy, and very skilled, very calm, very composed. It wasn't his best performance for sure, and he would be the first one to say that. His opponent was definitely doing a lot of things well, and Brandon just couldn't quite seem to get things going. Came up a little short in the decision. There was an awkward point taking late in round 3, which I think may have made all the difference. But even still, I don't think that was Brandon at his best. I've seen him at his best, and everybody has their nights where they're off, and I think that was just one of his. So that brings the end of the Tiger Schulman's fighters, but I'd be remiss if I did not talk about some of the other fights we had throughout the evening. Just again, looking through the amateur MMA card and kickboxing card, we had quite a few really, really good fights. Just flipping through quickly here. We did have a junior fighters fight at the last fight of the night. Those kids were game and really came for it. We had one fighter who had tried to make the walk a couple of times in a row, and just the ducks never came in a row. He had fights fall apart days before. He had fights falling apart on weigh-in day. Finally got to make the walk, and unfortunately came on the wrong side of a TKO finish, or rather a decision win, I should say. His opponent just skilled and strong, and that showed for sure. Then we moved on into some more kickboxing fights and some good stuff overall. Again, great action. Again, we had 33 fights that night, so there definitely seemed to be some. There was definitely a lot of fights to remember. We had a gentleman named Ragin, who I hadn't seen fight before, Ragin Jiang. He looked very complete, very tough, very strong. Again, it was funny. He made a prediction to us. He said, "What's going to stand out is in my knees to the body." And oh my God, did he land that knee over and over and over again. His opponent has to have a dent on his body still from that knee just landing continuously over and over and over. We had a ladies fight a little later in the card. That was good as well, right before Jordan's fight. And then, again, moved on to some other good fights throughout the night. Again, gave my commentary on people throughout the evening. We had a real tough night out for Isaiah Ice Torres. He skilled guy. We've seen him fight some very, very good people. And, he was fighting an opponent with some very, very good wrestling. And you could see the wrestling kind of got in his head a little bit. And he wasn't able to perform to the best of his abilities. But either way, a good stepping stone for him, a good test as he moved forward from there. Two young, very good prospects at 125, Michael Easton Shevcharian, Philip Prophet Whalen. Really grappling heavy contest. Michael is very, very, very smothering top wrestling, and he used it very, very effectively against a game Phil Wallen. We had returning veteran Saul Besseriel. He got a chance to shine. We had Vicky Fontaine, who's been in the flex cage quite a few times, against Willow Morton, comes down from Canada. Willow's very good, very tough, very complete fight with a spectacular nickname that I'm not going to repeat on the podcast, but I did use it quite often throughout the broadcast as she requested. Just a sweetheart of a young lady and very, very dedicated, very complete skills overall. Our first pro fight of the night, Pedro Villa, Anthony Rivera. Just a really awesome battle back and forth, as we had two very experienced wrestlers and grapplers working their way through some awesome scramble, some awesome back and forth, and eventually Pedro finds his way to the back, sinks the rear naked choke, switches the arm at just the right time, catches his opponent's neck right on it. Thing of beauty to finish the fight. To me, one of the highlight fights of the night was our other pro MMA fight, Cole the Crow Barnard versus Thomas Kernan. I had never seen Thomas perform before. He's from Florida, but Cole, I've called many of his fights now, and man, oh man, Cole always comes to fight, always comes prepared, very well rounded, very strong, real man, very skilled. And Thomas was right in his face from the time this fight started. I mean, Cole is 6'2", Thomas 6'4", so two very tall guys. And they were just absolutely going to war. Like early on in the fight, just in each other's faces, just smashing one another. Me and the other commentators got hit with blood at one point in the in one of their exchanges because both guys got cut up. Cole eventually lands a beautiful right hand that sits Thomas down. The referee stopped the contest. Both Alex and I thought the stoppage was a little early. We would have liked to see especially being a pro rules fight, we'd like to see the finish be maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say definitive, but at least give the pro a chance to fight his way back. I didn't think it was going to change the result of the fight. If anything, with the shot that Cole hit Thomas with, I probably would extend the fight another 5 seconds. But, still a pro fight. Give the guys a chance, in my opinion. Not that I thought, again, I still think Cole was going to win that fight. Like, he was winning that fight. The momentum was definitely in his favor, and then he was landing significantly a lot. And after that shot that he landed, you don't really see people come back from that shot. But even still, again, pro rules fight. Thomas seemed with it when he hit the ground, and I would have liked to see the ability to make a little bit more of a definitive finish. Just remove all doubt. Highly contested fight for one of our New York titles between Justin Myers and Gavin McQuaid. Two very good guys, very tough, back and forth fight. What was very interesting, Gavin, very good wrestler. Justin comes out and wrestles him in the third round and uses that to steal the fight. It was a spectacular performance. And then we had another East Coast title fight, Gabe Cabello versus Blake Menard. Good fight back and forth. Both guys. Gabe very confident in his distance, used it very well to win the fight. Issa Tiger Sultan, I've seen him perform many, many times. Adds another title to the title belt, defeating Aldair Mazariegos. Again, just a very good fight. Issa very complete, dominant ground game though, and used it very, very well. Anthony the Chief Palmiato adds another title to his collection. And I think this is his second flex title, but defeats Harold Morissette. Awesome fight once again. One of the highlights of the night in terms of knockouts, we had Zach Bada Bing Blumberg, 4-0, 4 finishes in MMA, just looking spectacular. Describes his style as violent, which is very, very, very true. I referred to him during the commentary as the embodiment of intensity, and that is certainly the truth. Fought a young man, Blake Cheesecake Torchin, and Blake fought for us back in Florida, and I think Blake looked spectacular when he fought for us down in Florida. However, this was not his night. Got into an early exchange with Zachary, and Zach landed. It wasn't the prettiest punch in the whole wide world. Zach has very pretty technique, and this wasn't the prettiest punch or the most powerful punch I've ever seen him throw. But he landed it right on the temple, and Blake separated Blake from his consciousness. And the referee jumps in and makes a save. It was an awesome knockout. I got to have a post-fight interview with him, and I think it looked great. Moved on to pro kickboxing. I already talked about Coutinho's fight. And then we had Diego Dutch Dragasar versus Jamal Thorne. Jamal hadn't fought in quite a while. The ring rust definitely showed. And Diego, much busier of the fighters, just generally, in terms of just career. And at many points during the fight, Diego had Jamal stuck up against the fence where he was just loading combination after combination after combination into his opponent. And Jamal was finding ways to survive over and over and over again, which was very impressive. And then eventually, he'd made the mistake one too many times of hanging his head. And after he'd hung his head for as long as he had, Diego stepped back, and rather than throw a punch or a knee into the gloves, he threw a front kick and just separated Jamal. He put Jamal into the shadow realm as he just hit him with a front kick. Very reminiscent of Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson, just whacked him with it. It was a terrible, terrible shot and a solid knockout. Again, that great post-fight interview with Dutch. He looked great. We moved on to our post-lims. We had Kamal Dunkley, who very game opponent that he fought, Nick Shakalara. Again, a very game opponent, and a very tough fight for both guys, right? I think Nick won the first round. Kamal came back, started swinging momentum in his favor in the second round, eventually finding the finish in the third round. Just an awesome, awesome fight. Then we had one of a few WKS title fights, World Kickboxing Series. The only thing that I disliked about these fights is that they were 5 rounds and it was already 11 o'clock. That's the only thing I disliked about these fights. Two very skilled guys for the 118-pound title, Tony Rodriguez and Renzo Palomino. Great fight, very skilled, very technical. It was really, really, really a very technical fight, very good. This was the corner for the blue corner fighters were fighting behind us. We were listening behind us on our announced position. And this was by far the most vocal corner of the night, Renzo's corner. But again, just an awesome, awesome fight. Moved on to another WKS kickboxing title. Another Mutant MMA representative, Christian Carlo, who I've seen in the MMA realm many times. Kickboxing once, and he took a kickboxing title fight against a guy who's very skilled in kickboxing, very experienced, in Reginald Carter out of 10th Planet Nazareth. Again, a good fight, tough dude in Christian Carlo. I could tell at the end of the third round whether Christian did not recall from, being in the pressure of the fight, or if he just didn't know or whatever. End of the third round, he was like, okay, I'm done. And I gave him the symbol, no, you got 2 more. And he looks at me, he's like, okay. Tough kid, Christian. Definitely dealt with some punishment for sure. Reggie walked away with the title there. We had another good fight. Just Georgi Kantrashvili coming up. Again, a guy who's had several canceled fights since his last appearance in the Flex Cage. Glad to finally see him able to get out there. And again, use that wrestling very, very well. Another WKS title fight. Again, 5 rounds, and these guys went all 5. It was towards this time that you were really seeing the sweat of these guys and what a difference the heat was making. And just I remember at one point in Daquan Malone's fight versus Alex Flores, I'm looking and both guys have sweat just dripping down their elbows as their hands are up in a defensive position. There's just so much sweat on them, it's dripping down their elbows. I was like, oh, gross, gross. We had another amateur kickboxing fight. That was another good one. We had 2 more after that. Just, again, good night of fights. And then we finished out with our juniors fight. But a good night of fights overall, as it always is at Flex. Let's not pretend like it's not. And Flex will be right back at it August the 30th. I will not be in attendance for that one, unfortunately. But I know there's a spectacular night of fights coming. So tune in for sure. It'll be back at Melrose Ballroom in Queens. So it's going to be awesome. And I know for sure Melrose Ballroom has working air conditioning. It was working back in May. So nonetheless, as we press forward here, talk about the lesson that we learned. And that lesson, very simple. 2 days or so after the fight card, one of the staff responded to a text message I had sent him. And when he responded, he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I missed this on fight week. I apologize. I just got a new phone. I got inundated with texts. My bad. I'm sorry. I said, no problem. These things happen. I got what I needed. What I asked him for, I got from somebody else, so it was no problem. Nonetheless, he and I then break into a conversation, which goes to him talking about, oh yeah, I'm watching the broadcast back, and you guys this. He talked about a metaphor that one of us made or one of us said, and I said, so how we do? And he gave me some constructive criticism, some solid feedback, and right away he got as he said it, I don't want to say qualified. That's probably not the right word. Maybe defended it or a little bit, or tried to soften the blow a little. And I said to him, Rick, I wouldn't have asked for feedback if I was going to be sensitive about it. I'm only asking for feedback to try to make things better. That's why I ask for feedback. That's why I go back and I watch the shows back, so I can see what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well. And also so I can do it better next time. That's kind of the whole idea. If you're not trying to get better at what you're doing, what are you doing? And it's funny because it corresponded with Zach Blumberg had that great knockout. And I remember back in April he fought for us. And before that fight, he came to me. Or rather, I saw him out and I was just chatting with him and some other people. And once again, chatting with the fighters. He goes, Sensei, I heard what you said during my last fight, about, keeping my range a little bit more, about making sure that I stayed at the end of my punches, and I've really been working at that. And you're going to see that I'm going to do that so much better tonight. And I loved it. That's one of the things I think I've spoken before about the respect I have for the coach at Mutant MMA. Not that I don't have respect for a lot of the coaches, but I think I have a great relationship with the coach from Mutant MMA. I think he's a great guy. I think he and I are very simpatico. And it all comes from the mindsets that he preaches. And all of his guys, I always say it, all of his guys, every time I see them, everybody shakes my hand. Everybody says hello. Everybody greets me as Sensei, which I love, even though I don't introduce myself as Sensei. He always greets me with a big hug. Everybody always says hello. All of his guys are on point. They're all gentlemen on top of being very good fighters. They're super cool and humble outside the cage, to the point where it's funny. Even their teammates have to blow them up a little bit, which is kind of nice. Come fight night, whole different gentleman. And very skilled in the cage, all of them. But nonetheless, there's a big difference, and this is what I really wanted to take out of this. A big difference between insults and criticism, right? Some people will complain about all the haters. I got all these haters. I got all these haters online, and all these haters this and all these haters that. And I'm like, you don't have enough of a presence online to have a hater, number one. I don't have enough of a presence online to have haters, right? There are always critics, though. And there's a big difference between someone hating and someone critiquing, right? And the thing about criticism is criticism comes from a place of care. It comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of someone who actually wants you to be better, right? And that's the thing. I do, whenever we have Team Tiger Schulman's fighters fight at the card, I ask the other coaches, I'm like, what did you guys see? I don't spend a lot of time at other fight events outside of flex fights. So I'm like, what did you guys see that we could do better? Aside, this time, I'll say, aside from the air conditioning. But nonetheless, I always want to hear about those things, because that's how we get better. It's how we grow. And if you're too sensitive about it, then you're going to stay the same. You're going to stay the same. See, the problem that many people have in life when they're very sensitive that way is they only have one mind to think about problems, because other people are not confident, are not comfortable sharing their mind. They're not comfortable sharing what's going on in their mind with their friend, right? So if I just stuck my fingers in my ears after a Flex Fights event, or if the promoters stuck their fingers in the ears after a Flex Fights event, we'd never get any better. And they're pretty good. We're all pretty good, I should say, about seeing the difference between constructive criticism and someone just complaining. Because those are two very different things, right? A hater, someone insulting, is just trying to make you feel bad. It's just trying to diminish what you're doing. They can't point to fact. They can't point to improvement. They can't say, instead of this, do this. All they can say is the way you do that is bad. I remember, it's funny, I remember not long ago, a while ago, someone had a critique about the staff photo that was taken at the end of one of our shows, and they said there wasn't enough diversity. And front and center in the picture is co-owner, at the time co-owner, CEO, matchmaker, Chris Machi, who's Spanish. He's Latin. He's not. And there's still diversity all over the picture. The guy was just cherry picking. Oh, look at all those white faces, and it was like, well, yeah, there are, but look at all the other faces too. And then recently, we had a fight between two guys with losing records, and significantly losing records. I believe there were two wins between them, and there were about 10 or 12 fights between them. So guys who obviously had some work to do on their skills. And me and the other commentators, we did our best to try to, qualify what was happening, but not a lot of what was happening was the best technique. Like in certain situations, there were takedowns and it was just one dude muscle and the other to the ground. And there was a conversation to be had because it was the last fight of the night too. And the fight was sponsored by one of our sponsors, Fat Boy Burritos. And ironically, a couple weeks earlier, I'd had that sent to my school I'd had that like DoorDash or whatever to my school when the kids were at the school and needed to eat. So I talked about that on air. About, man, this burrito was unbelievable, so big. And the commentary online from one of the fighters and a bunch of his friends were all about how we were hating on his very obvious skills, and we obviously didn't know what we were talking about. We were busy talking about what burritos we wanted. He was looking for something to complain about, bro. I'm sorry. Like if you're listening now, you were just looking for something to complain about. You were looking for somebody to blame for your performance other than you. That's that. I mean, there's someone who was just looking to complain, just looking to try to make a stink because he felt he should have gotten a better shake when the reality is you sold no tickets to the fight, neither of you. And on top of that, I can see, I've been doing martial arts for more than half my life. The other gentleman who's sitting in the booth with me, very similar. So, I mean, there's a combined, at that particular fight card, a combined in the booth, we probably had 60 or 70 years of martial arts experience. There isn't much we haven't seen. So the guy was making some claims, and again, he was just on there trying to complain, trying to raise a stink for no reason. And, Flex answered them in a kind and respectful, and, we'll look into it. And we made some jokes afterwards about like, oh yeah, that was the fight. That was going to be the one to end our commentary career and whatever. But again, no constructive criticism. No, this is what should be done better. Just, you're doing bad. Right? And there's a big difference between that and this is what you can do better. Right? And when I was speaking to the gentleman from Flex Fights on Sunday, and he was telling me about how he was watching it back, what he didn't say is, I didn't like this. What he did say was, I feel like it would be better if you did this. I'm all ears for that. I'm all ears for that because that's how I'm going to get better. And that's how we should all be. Right? Know the big difference between someone who is just complaining to complain, who's just hating to hate. Small percentage. But have your ears open for constructive criticism. When it comes from a place of love, when it comes from a place of improvement, take that. Take it and use it to get yourself better. Be greedy with it. Know that everyone around you is only trying to help you get better. That way, you're multiplying the minds that are working on your performances, not just using your own. So that's all I have for you guys this week. As always, you can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm at sensei_Leonelli. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Sensei James Leonelli. If you're one of the Flex Fighters, by the way, feel free to reach out to me in any of those places as well. Specifically, like if you guys don't get your fighter questionnaire, reach out to me. Nonetheless, moving forward, talking about my school, you can find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. Facebook, we're Tiger Schulman, facebook.com/Tiger Schulman Smithtown. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at tsmma_Smithtown. Find out more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Sensei's Weekly Mindset. You can find my Linktree and everywhere I'm on the internet, everything Flex Fights, where you can go back and watch the fights. You can find everything Tiger Schulman's, sponsors, you name it, Linktree, linktr.ee/Sensei Leonelli. There, in addition to that, I should say, you can find all the sponsor information. Sponsor opportunities are still available. Make sure that you guys leave a rate and review. It just helps. Subscribe, get you new episodes every Wednesday. But most important thing you can do for me, guys, share the podcast. It's my only form of advertising. It's the greatest compliment you can give me. So I very much appreciate it when I can see you do that. Other than that, my friends, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.